October 4th, 2004, 3:10 a.m. The nagging need to urinate kept him from slipping back into the timeless coma. He didn't want to get up, but he had a few hours before work. He forced himself up and shambled through the darkness using his cell phone screen as a light. The thought of the job inspired anxiety, even anger at times. He anticipated the inevitable sandbag of clocking in while expelling the pungent stream. The stress has been affecting his sleep patterns. Not just sleep, but his appetite and weight as well. Standing at the foot of his bed, something compelled him to stop. Something felt off. He had goosebumps all over his body, like he came into contact with a live wire. A disturbing, weird discomfort. Like he was being watched. Andy flicked on the lights and reached for his Ruger 357 Magnum in the nightstand, checking to make sure it was loaded. 6 rounds. He checked the bedroom closet and under his bed to find a resounding nothing. He felt foolish and cursed the dwindling time before his next shift being wasted on a red herring. Andy flicked off the light and placed the revolver on the nightstand, then noticed something strange. Through the window opposite of the left side of his bed was a larger window looking into the backyard. In the yard was a motion-activated light. The lights were on. He grabbed the revolver and got to the right side of the window, sneaking a peek into the now illuminated yard. Aside from the sensor being tripped, he couldn't make anything else out. Just the tree line. A void ominously staring into his weathered soul. The thought then occurred to him. Was it probably just some animal? Like a deer or a fox? He lived in New Hampshire. Things of that nature were very common. But the paranoia lingered past his catharsis. The fear of the unknown rattling in the back of his head like a pinball machine. He lay awake for over an hour thinking about what it could have been. Andy came to in a state of hyperventilation. An overwhelming dread had washed over him in his sleep and dragged him into consciousness. Like waking up from a nightmare, but he couldn't remember dreaming. Just darkness. He turned on the lamp and made sure his revolver was still there by his side. At least the motion sensors weren't tripped in the backyard again. He got up and peered into the dark. That's when he noticed something. Something that sent electricity through his pores. There was something in his yard. Andy panicked. What the fuck is that, he thought to himself, as he backed up to grab his gun. He turned the lamp off and peered into the abyss. The tree line filled him with dread. The unknown laying veiled just out of reach. The curiosity built into a fever pitch. He wasn't getting to sleep until he knew for certain. Andy activated the flashlight on his cell phone and left the bedroom, descending to the first floor. The sliding glass door to the patio was still locked, blinds drawn. He flicked on the lights of the backyard and opened the blinds. The yard was empty. There's nothing out there, he tried to convince himself, trying to talk himself into going back to bed, but he couldn't. He felt compelled to investigate. Andy unlocked the sliding door, slid it open, exposing himself to the cold, damp night. Dew lay heavy on the grass as it crunched under his dead feet. His toes were frozen within the first few minutes. He made his way to the tree line, moving slower as he got closer, eventually coming to a stop to peer into the void. The light didn't project very far. He could barely see 6 feet in front of himself. Squinting and leaning around for an imaginary better angle to fight the fear of pushing forward, feeling as though he could be rushed at any moment. His heart pounded. Something in the shadows moved. It was almost like a body, as though someone or something was watching him from the tree line the entire time. Andy raised his weapon and took aim. His mind was a whirlwind. Could he truly be sure he saw what he thought he saw? And if it was what he thought he saw, was it alone? He spun his light in a circle, nearly dropping his phone. Then back at the tree line. He was losing his composure fast. He had to get back inside where it was safe, somewhere where his back wasn't exposed to God knows what was waiting for him. Weapon at the ready, Andy went back into the house, locked the doors, and called the police. The police eventually came and did a full sweep of the entire property, but found nothing. Nothing in the house, nothing in the trees. The officers told him if it happened again, call the police department. October 6th, 2004, 3:12 a.m. Andy woke to the sound of shattering glass. At this point, he was unable to reach a state of deep sleep, teetering on the edge of nothing and everything, ready to snap on a dime as one does when they're trying to fight sleep and the alarm goes off. He grabbed the gun with retained muscle memory. He flicked on the lamp, fixed the barrel of the revolver to the bedroom door. Dead silence blanketed the home. It was unnerving. He pushed forward, through the fear, and made his way to the first floor. The sliding glass door had been shattered. The sturdy glass reduced to pebbles on the floor inside his home. He needed a light. He reached for his phone, but it wasn't there. He didn't have it on him. A new wave of panic washed over him, torn between the need to know and all that he learned from B-list horror movies. He disregarded his intuition and stepped through the broken door, the glass pebbles digging into his bare feet. Someone was in the yard. His balls were in his throat. He took aim and slowly made his way outside to activate the light. What the halogen exposed crippled him with horror. It was a woman, but she wasn't alive. She couldn't be. Her skin was gray. Her hair was a rat's nest. Her clothes bloody, tattered, and torn. She stared at him with dead fish eyes. She was almost like a statue. The scenario forged in nightmares manifested itself that night. He was alone. Help wasn't coming. Standing face to face with a living dead girl. He couldn't speak. He couldn't move. His hands were shaking. The lights went out. Andy leapt backwards to force the light back on, gun still fixed forward towards the ghoulish figure. The lights came on, and it was closer. A full 3 feet closer, still as marble with those glassy, dead eyes, stained with gore. "Don't you fucking move," Andy screamed out in desperation. The lights went out again. Andy nearly had a seizure. He retreated a few steps, still aiming his gun forward. He couldn't tell if the footsteps he heard were his own or the abomination. The darkness, seconds felt like hours. As he prayed light would come again, the lights came on. The freak was even closer, uncomfortably close, smell of rot from the grave. Bony, rotten fingers, exposing bone and gangrenous flesh, unmoving like a statue, waiting with murderous intent. She wasn't breathing. Zero movement. Andy's heart pounded like a war drum. He felt dizzy from the tension, but had to hold it together. But it was an unmanageable goal. His hands shook violently. He couldn't stabilize them. The lights went out again. Andy turned and sprinted into the house and flipped the first light switch that he saw on, hoping that the warm glow would ward off the monster. He ran into his bedroom, turning on every light that he could manage, and grabbed his cell phone. It was nearly dead. As he dialed the local PD, the power failed. He was now near pitch blackness. Someone's in my house. They broke the door down. Please, please for the love of God, send someone. Andy blurted out, gun trained on the doorway. Please dispatch probe for more information. Are you alone? How many intruders? The phone died. Andy's blood ran cold. Oh, fuck no. He blurted out involuntarily. He diverted his full focus onto the doorway. There was no way that thing was entering without getting a face full of hot metal. But how do you kill something that is not alive? Slowly creaking footsteps made their way up the stairs, spaced several seconds apart. Andy's nerves were shot. He couldn't handle the stress. What if I miss, he asked himself, as he shakily aimed at the door. He only had 6 rounds. 6 rounds in a revolver. Revolvers don't have fast fire rates, and even longer reload times. And again, how do you kill something that isn't alive? Sirens could be heard in the distance. The glimmer of hope washed over him for a brief moment. The flashing of the red and blue shone through the windows, casting some light. And that moment of hope was broken. The creature slowly peeked his head around the corner. Andy's mouth dropped open. He was mortified. Back into a corner, unraveling. Those icy dead fish eyes siphoned whatever bit of backbone he was holding on to get him through. This thing was not alive. It was not alive. There was just no way. It started to breathe violently. With that menacing presence suffocating the room, sucking the air out and pumping it with a vial of putrid horror. Its breathing was labored as though it was choking on its own blood, still as a statue. And he stood there, attempting to steady his aim, in pain.